economic development, healthcare, and victims advocacy. These are the topics on the next Latino Motion.
Choose quality, value, distinction. Choose Stockton.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation, and Stockton University. This edition of Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is brought to you by the HD Studios at the campus of Stockton University. Funding for Latino Motion is provided by Atlanticare, healthcare you can believe in. Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world. And South Jersey Gas. Welcome to Latino Motion, a weekly interview show highlighting issues impacting New Jersey's Latino community while advancing understanding of Latino cultural heritage and contributions to our society. And here is your host, Bert Lopez.
Buenos dias, and thank you for joining us today. The underrepresentation of Latinos in nursing is one of the topics that we will discuss with my first guest, Elena Cueto. Elena, welcome to Latino Motion.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Likewise.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the underrepresentation of Latinos, and I have some information here that indicates that Hispanics comprise only 3% of the nursing population. That's a staggering number. Tell us a little bit about why it's so critical and what's so significant about those numbers.
Yeah, it is a staggering number, and it's alarming when you think that there's only 3% Hispanic nurses in the country, and the number of Hispanics keeps growing exponentially in the country. And so we need to bridge this gap. Who's going to be taking care of the Hispanics in their communities if we're not providing the service, if there are not enough Hispanic nurses out there to do so?
If we look at the U.S. Census, basically 17% of the population is Latino, and it's
correct.
edging up there to 20%. So certainly the underrepresentation is very significant. You don't have the numbers to match the population. Again, you mentioned that diversity, that factor, that big gap that exists. What do you think we can do to overcome it?
Well, statistics show there are 3 reasons why Hispanics are either entering nursing school and dropping out or just not entering at all. The first is family responsibilities. The second is lack of funding. And the third is lack of role models. So for us, it's crucial. There are 40 chapters nationwide of the Hispanic Nursing Association. So for us, it's really important to get the word out, to mentor those nursing students so that they can continue their studies to completion, and to also provide scholarships at both the local level, the state level, as well as national level.
So you mentioned mentors, and it's important to have that representation. You happen to be one of those mentors.
Thank you.
I met you at the Hispanic Leadership Summit, and you were very active that event. That was your first time attending.
Yes.
One of the things that your organization does essentially is try to educate the community about the shortage.
Yes, to educate the community about this shortage, but also to provide a service to the community. Because as Hispanic nurses, we're the mirror image of that community that we serve.
So tell me, in the organization itself, you mentioned the various chapters. Do you find a way to provide scholarships and other means for Latinos to be involved in nursing?
Absolutely. At a local level, for our chapter, we've partnered with various organizations and community partners. Recently, we received funding through Johnson & Johnson to provide 3 scholarships per year at $1,000 each. It may not seem that significant, but the fact is that it is. It makes a difference in the life of a student when they're trying to figure out, how am I going to pay that invoice that's coming in that's now receiving interest from the school?
So as we talk about obstacles, you mentioned the scholarship. That's what obviously finances is an obstacle to getting more people involved in nursing, more Latinos involved. But there are other obstacles that Latinos have to overcome as well. Tell me a little bit about some of those obstacles.
Some of those obstacles are traditionally within our culture. nursing is not seen as a profession that one should follow or pursue. So one of the things that we do is we partnered recently on May 1st. We went to Rutgers College of Nursing, where they had high school students who were preparing for the SATs. And we were able, there was a panelist of speakers, and we were represented as one of the panelist of speakers, informing them about the different careers in nursing, in science, and in STEM. Whether it's nursing, whether it's medicine, whether it's follow a path in math and science, we need to build our students' path.
Let's talk about the requirements for nursing. Traditionally, we've had a lot of Latinos who may have gone to a technical school, got an LPN, and been able to been hired as a nurse. It's been more and more difficult for LPNs to get hired, and we moved up to associate's degree, and it's now becoming even harder. Tell me a little bit about what is requirement and the evolution, basically, to the need now for a bachelor's degree to be a nurse.
That's correct. With the Institute of Medicine report, it actually showed evidence that patients do better patient outcomes with nurses that have higher degrees. Minimum degree that they're requiring now is a Bachelor's of Science degree. So it's our goal to help those nurses complete that minimum degree and to go on and get higher education.
You have quite a number of students that are thinking about becoming an RN, going to get their associate's degree. Doesn't mean they can't get employed, and they could still be an RN.
Yeah,
but the requirements are increasing.
Yeah, there are hospitals that have put in within their policy where if you're already a nurse with an LPN or an associate's, they give you, let's say, 5 years to go on and complete that bachelor's degree so that you can continue within the workforce. But truly, for the nurses that are starting out now, if your goal is to complete an associate's degree, my advice to them is continue. Don't stop there. Go on and get your bachelor's degree. And even go on further. If you can, go on for your master's and your doctorate.
So aside from helping Latinos and to become nurses, you also try to do some outreach in the Latino community to do more education in terms of our own health and addressing some of the health disparities. Tell me a little bit about that work.
Yeah, we go into the communities. We partner with various organizations or hospitals or schools, and we do an assessment of what is needed in that community, whether it be diabetes education, whether it's healthy eating and exercise for the kids due to the problem in the country with obesity, whether it's hypertension. Whatever the case may be, we try to go in there and educate. It's different when you're educating in their own language. And you understand the culture. And as a Hispanic nurse, I understand, the arroz con gandules and el caldero and how we serve it. Right. So it's a matter of educating them and understanding the culture and the colloquialisms. And I think that's important because when you're able to relate, they feel there's a sense of trust within the community, and they feel like, oh, okay, I should be listening to this nurse because she understands, how I cook for my family or what it is that I could be doing differently to better help my family to be healthy.
Another part of this whole equation is getting more of the health institutions to embrace diversity and be more involved. There's one statistics to say that only in hospital boards, only 14% are people of color. So there's underrepresentation even at the board level or at leadership level at the hospitals.
Actually, that's another point that touches on the Institute of Medicine report, the need for diversity in the workforce, especially within the boards, and the need to increase the number of nurses that sit at the board. And there are action coalitions here within the state of New Jersey, and we actually sit at the table, the National Association of Hispanic Nurses sit at the table with them to try to be innovative as to how can we get there? How can we get our nurses to sit on those boards?
Very important, and having nursing on the board is critical. I happen to be one of the Latinos who happen to serve on the board of a hospital, and it's very important to have that representation. I thank you for joining us today and sharing this important information with our audience.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Latino Motion.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. Join us online at www.latinomotion.tv. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We encourage your comments and contributions for show topics.
Welcome back to Latino Motion. When we think of economic development in the context of the Latino community, the first thing that often comes to mind is small business. And of course, Latinos are a big economic engine throughout the nation. But we happen to have with us here today a Latino who is a champion of economic development in the mainstream in Cumberland County. Jerry Velasquez is the Executive Director of the Cumberland County Improvement Authority. Jerry, welcome to Latino Motion.
Thank you, Bert. Good to be here.
So you have truly been a leader coming in economic development, not just with the authority, but obviously you're in that position now and making some big strides. But before we get to some of those successes, tell me a little bit about your background and how you got to be the Executive Director of the Improvement Authority.
Well, actually, my background's in finance. I thought I was going to be a Wall Street stockbroker. Did a couple interviews in New York and realized that I wanted to come back to South Jersey. So ended up working for a small nonprofit. Completed my first project right out of college, which was the Farm Worker Project back then.
I used to be on that board with
Exactly. So, and ever since then, I guess it's been 30 years now. It's amazing to think that 30 years ago I started in this field, and thinking I was going to be a Wall Street stockbroker. Now we've been involved in about $1 billion worth of development over the course of the last 30 years. So it's been great.
And obviously from farm workers, you also were involved with Tri-County for a while.
Correct. I was with Tri-County, then I went to work for an entity called the Community Builders, then I ran the Cumberland Empowerment Zone, worked for Triad Associates, which was a consulting firm, worked for public-private, did a lot of municipal and county type activities, and my relationship at Triad with the county created an opportunity for me to come over, and one of the things that happened with respect to the Improvement Authority was for 30 years the Improvement Authority in Cumberland County ran the landfill. We were known as the landfill operator.
Well, when you think of Improvement Authority, that usually is what comes to mind is the landfill and obviously taking care of the recycling and so forth.
Correct.
You've been able to expand that significantly. Tell me a little bit about how you went about that.
Well, one of the things we did, and the reason I was brought on board was because of my economic development expertise. I really had other than going to the landfill to drop my garbage off, I really had no experience or expertise. So really what they wanted to do was bring some economic development capacity and start to look like a redevelopment authority. We knew how to run the landfill, we ran the operations well, really never got involved in the economic development piece and the redevelopment piece. So really we started out by making very strategic investments in our downtowns related to education. So we utilize and essentially maximize the technical high school, the college, and a lot of the institutions throughout the county to make sure that our investments were sound and that our investments were going to be repaid, but also wanted to make an impact in our education and also in our downtowns.
Well, you have certainly started a chain reaction, or so to speak, in terms of economic development in the county. I have the privilege to sit as chair of the Cumberland County Economic Development Board, which falls under you as well. And certainly the county is really leading the way in many aspects. Tell me a little bit about some of the projects that you're involved with that you have spearheaded.
Well, one of the things we did early on was, the county had economic development under its auspices, so we combined economic development with the Improvement Authority so that we'd have the ability to develop and also to implement projects and also bring businesses into the community. The next thing we did was, we went from no development, for 30 years to now $100 million worth of development, which includes the new technical high school, the Center for Workforce and Economic Development, the Arts and Innovation Center. We purchased the Office of Employment and Training and the Board of Social Services building. We're renovating that. We're going to lease that to the Treasury. So again, all those opportunities were geared around making sure that our investments were strategic in our downtowns with education, and so you go from 0 to 100 million in 2 years, and it's been a busy 2 years.
Oh, and it's probably not as easy as you're making it sound either. Tell me a little bit about some of the creative things you had to do to get these projects.
Well, there's a lot of collaboration and partnership, and obviously getting people to understand that we can pull these projects off. And so the first project we started to work on was the acquisition of the Board of Social Services and also employment training. For a long time, the county leased space, essentially didn't gain any equity, and we felt that we were paying too much for the building in the long run. So it made much more sense for us to acquire the building, gain equity. At the end of the lease period, at the end of the bond period, then the county will have equity and essentially own the building and pay no debt.
Well, besides making the county and the county freeholders healthy financially, so to speak, tell me how this benefits the overall community, particularly the residents of Cumberland County.
Well, what benefits the residents because we're able to control our destiny. We're able to plan for long term what our finances are going to look like, and quite frankly, we're able to make investments in the downtown, attract private investment, and also upgrade our education. Education is primary if we're going to succeed. Cumberland County is kind of always on the back end of the upswings. The good news is because we're on the back end of the upswings, we're also on the back end of the downswings. So now that things are picking up, there really isn't a lot of available land throughout the state of New Jersey except for our area. So we think we can take advantage of that, and we can use our public investments to attract private investment. That's key for the county because that creates jobs, that creates opportunities, that creates educational opportunities, training opportunities, and essentially helps us to move forward and lets people know we're open for business.
Right, well, one of the leads that the county unfortunately also had was an unemployment rate. How has this helped on unemployment?
Well, obviously, directly it helps because you have folks that are going to work. So right now we have about 150 people that are now employed on the construction jobs. We have another 100 people that are going to be hired at the new technical high school. We have folks that are going to be hired at the Arts and Innovation Center. We're expanding our services, and we're expanding our programs to hire people. So there's direct hiring opportunities. And then obviously when you create projects in the downtown, new businesses are attracted. So we have private investors now that are buying properties, that want to start restaurants, that want to start small businesses, hopefully some Latino businesses in our neighborhood that can really help and create jobs. I mean, the county, the public cannot be the end-all, be-all with respect to economic development. It can drive, it can facilitate, it can help to direct, but at the end of the day, unless we have private investment, we're not going to have the success that we want.
And overall, you're helping to improve the quality of life for everyone in Cumberland County. So
Correct.
Kudos to you and for taking that leadership role and certainly making a good use of your talents to help improve our community.
Well, thank you.
We're going to take a quick break. Thank you for joining us on Latino Motion. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. Join us online at www.latinomotion.tv. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We encourage your comments and contributions for show topics.
Welcome back to Latino Motion. Many of us can sympathize with victims of violence and their families, but few of us can imagine the tremendous loss of losing a child to violence. Yet that is something that many families face today. Here to talk about advocacy for victims of violence and their families is Aleida Garcia and Wilfredo Rojas, community advocates and parents to a child that was lost to violence. Wilfredo and Aleida, welcome to Latino Motion.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Tell me a little bit about the tragic loss that you faced.
Well, we're here to talk about our son, Alejandro Gabriel Rojas Garcia, and his nickname was Lucci. And, Alex was somebody that everyone loved. He was currently studying at Temple University, and he left behind 2 children, 4 sisters, a brother, his parents, and numerous nieces and nephews, and many, many friends. And he was murdered senselessly January 24th of this year, January 24th. And he had gone out with some friends to celebrate the fact that he had just gotten a beautiful apartment up in East Falls. And, the crime happened early in the morning of January 24th.
So certainly you both have a lot of courage. This happened recently, so it just happened earlier this year. And yet you mobilized very quickly, not just to go through your grieving process, but to also help many others. Tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing.
Well, first of all, I worked in corrections for 25 years where I encountered people that were actually accused and convicted of murder. So I pretty much had a sense of what people go through. However, on the victim side, we have a lot of ministries that cater to the spiritual needs of inmates and people that are convicted of murder, but very few ministries or very few programs that are directed at the tragic loss and the effects that the tragic loss of a loved one has on the families.
Right. We found that you know, before our son died, of course, we had been involved in vigils and, you know, concerned about the violence in the community. But when it hits home, it's a completely different experience. And we had to go through the coroner's office and the judicial process. And, you know, there is a suspect in custody, but we actually had to witness the preliminary hearing. And what we found is that there are many, many other Latino families that have no one that they can really refer to in the community. There are some advocacy groups, and we're partnering with them. But we were trying to really raise awareness, especially in our community.
And we often see this problem with the youth, and obviously your son was not a teenager, which is often happens in the urban communities, and we see that loss, and certainly those families do need the support. Tell me a little bit about the various projects. I know you started several things to reach out to other people who are grieving, and this is also helping you through your grieving process as well, correct?
Well, we say that our action is our therapy. And one of the main projects that we're working on right now is Pope Francis is coming to Philadelphia for the World Meeting of Families. And we're asking the Pope Francis, we wrote him a letter, that we'd like to have an audience with him, because I understand that he will be going to a juvenile prison. And we believe that if he's going to actually go to a juvenile prison, he should take the time out to meet with families that are grieving, that have lost a loved one to violence.
And we're finding that a lot of people are supporting that effort, and that we may very well see that audience. And we want to, you know, invite people who have experienced this tragic loss in their family, you know, to go to our website at justiceforalexnow.com and get information. And they can also email us their name and their story at justiceforalexnow@gmail.com.
And sign the petition.
And they can sign the petition also.
I go see, murder is an international problem that cuts across our backgrounds.
And you mentioned the fact that homicide is a leading public health epidemic, and that's certainly true, and it impacts many people of color, Latinos.
It is the number one killer of men of color in this country. It kills more men of color than heart disease or diabetes or cancer or any other illness. And the theory of looking at it as a public health epidemic is because it not only is there loss of life, but then it affects an entire family, and it can affect a family for generations. Like in our case, you know, we're trying to really move forward and take action, but we grieve every day, and we're suffering every day.
Let's talk about the programs that you do have. You have the Justice for Alex Now campaign,
Right.
and you also have a podcast project. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I have two programs. One is called Loving Legacy at gtownradio.com, and the other one is Legado de Amor at latinosradio.com. And basically what we do on the program, we have family members that have lost a loved one. One of my co-hosts is named Bernie Ray, and he lost his son January 4th of this year. And, you know, instead of us going necessarily to a support group, we're developing a voice. So we're giving ourselves and other families a voice through the media of online radio. So to talk about the issues, to talk about, you know, different things that are going on in the community concerning the violence, and to have people come on the program and, you know, talk about their loved ones and their cases.
We'll make sure to have that website up so people could check it out. Building Awareness Project. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we want to serve as a vessel for people that have lost a loved one to murder. And what we want to do is, a lot of people are not familiar with the criminal justice process. And every time you go to court, you're actually taking the body out of the grave, because it brings back those same memories. So what we want to do is raise awareness of the effects of murder when you lose it. I mean, it's a prolonged effect that doesn't go away.
Tell me a little bit about the reaction you've gotten from other families that you've been able to reach.
Particularly Latino families, there is nothing that's going on right now that is catering to the needs of Latino families that have lost a son to murder. And we want to initiate that, but we want to be inclusive.
Do you have a family that's responded to you?
We have lots of families,
lots of
many families. In fact, one of the things that we did, I think that was very important, is that we are supporting each other within the courtroom. So when we had the actual preliminary hearing, we had a group of family members that have also loved loved ones supporting us, and then in return we support them.
I'm looking forward to the video where you're meeting with the Pope, and hopefully we'll have you back and discuss how that went.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here on Latino Motion. This is an important message to send out to our community. And thank you for joining us at home once again on Latino Motion.
Choose quality, value, distinction. Choose Stockton.
Funding for Latino Motion is provided by Atlanticare, healthcare you can believe in. Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world. And South Jersey Gas.